This podcast episode is about how you can only connect the dots looking backwards. Welcome to Founded in Transcreation, the first ever podcast on transcreation where we delve into how brands cross borders and also into creativity and marketing and branding, which are all domains that somehow come into play when it comes to localizing and transcreating advertising and marketing campaigns. Today, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the story behind how I started transcreating songs. So let's go for it. So this story is actually based on an article I wrote for one of my blogs and for LinkedIn a couple of months ago, which you can read by clicking on the link I'm referencing on the description of this podcast episode on Anchor.fm, Spotify, and the rest of the platforms where you may be listening right now. So when I was a preteen and all through my adolescence, I was curious to try and find out what certain songs would sound like if they were rewritten in a language different than their own. As with every creative endeavor, the human spirit may be as motivated to doing what feels propelled to do as not doing it because of fear. The famous fear of not reaching a satisfactory outcome, of not giving birth to a piece of work worth sharing with others or even looking at. When you want to create something and you give in to resistance because of your fear, and because you fear that the results may not be good enough, well, fear wins. And you end up creating nothing at all, which was true for me for a while. Somehow, though, opportunities would present themselves through my teenage that pushed me to create stuff, one of which eventually led me to try rewriting a few songs from English into Spanish or vice versa. This is a story of how I found a way to connect my curiosity about what it was like to rewrite songs and what it was like to actually hear them sung in a new language. Opera singing, a star wasn't born. When I was 15, rather late, according to the Golden Book of When Talent Can Be Successfully Pursued and Developed, I decided I wanted to study music apart from regular schooling and English as a second language. I wanted to sing like professional singers do at the opera. Right, you may giggle. But you see, we had a piano at home. My mom speaks 5 languages and she's a real pianist. So I guess I was inspired by a number of factors and facts and so on. One day, I went to the local public school of music to apply for a spot in the lyrical singing class. It's a state-run school and education there is really good, which means everybody wants to study music there. So it's not easy to get in. For about a week, I attended all the pre-entrance lessons with absolute joy, driven by my mild curiosity. In percussion class, I'd clap and stamp my foot to set the pace while reading elementary music on the blackboard. During melodic dictations, I'd be virtually teleported to that well-known scene from The Sound of Music as I'd eagerly hum do, re, mi, fa, do, la, si, and down. Si, la, do, fa, mi, re, do. To say I was filled with adrenaline when I sat for the 3 qualifying examinations would only partially account for my experience. And I hadn't even been officially admitted as an opera singing student yet. The day of checking the results of my exams came. Naturally, I'd eagerly awaited that date. Going over countless surnames of prospective students posted on the school hall walls, I finally spotted mine. I was in. But then I wasn't. As it turned out, I was too young for singing as opera people do on film and arts. The school secretary said that the teachers said that my vocal cords weren't ready for such professional training yet. What? I went from ecstasy to despair. Didn't she realize she was crushing my dream here? The reason seemed lousy too. But I've passed all your 3 exams with 90 over 100% marks, I said. I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. It's school policy. You must be at least 16, she said. But that's not happening until November next year. I'll miss a whole year. My heart sunk. My career in the opera world had ended before it had even begun. Unless, began the woman with a tone that gave me a lurch of hope, unless you signed up for a different course of studies. It would be a pity, since you passed all our exams. Your application did get accepted. Sure, said I. What other courses do you offer? I did tell you we had a piano at home, right? When I opted for piano as a consolation prize, little did I know that I would fall in love with it. The course included learning not just to play the piano, but also to read and write music as well. For 5 years non-stop, I studied piano for 15 to 40 minutes a day at home, while I kept attending my piano and musical language lessons once a week each. Mozart, Czerny, Bach, my dearest Chopin, all landed in my hands as my teachers would challenge me to play their works. Every lesson I attended, every exam I passed, I felt as challenged as I felt drawn to stepping out of my comfort zone and playing in front of others, works which I'd only dreamt of ever playing. Every such instance of discomfort resulted in my overcoming my old fear of not being good enough for the stage, whenever the time would come for me to finally sing with confidence, like opera singers do. After 5 years of playing the classics and very much enjoying the training, I got a little tired of following the rules and doing as my masters said. I started adding chunks of songs to Bach's works by accidentally misreading his staves. My teacher would tell me I should be more attentive to detail, to which I'd retort that I was pretty sure my accidental changes in the piece itself didn't sound so bad, huh? He'd scowl and gesture for me to go again. Da capo, Delfina. Certainly, I wasn't made for professional piano playing, but did I long to be a professional pianist? No, I wanted to play stuff for fun, from a band maybe. I was more into songs by the Carpenters, the Bee Gees, Celine Dion, Modern Talking, Madonna, Carly Simon, Ace of Base, Phil Collins, and inspiring movie soundtracks by Hans Zimmer and Rachel Portman. And needless to say, by the age of 20, I stopped sticking to the school plan and decided to drop out. When your creative endeavors cause you more pain than relish, whether it be due to your teacher's teachings or your own, I've had enough of failing here, then you are allowed to stop for a while. So I did exactly that. I passed my last exam of the essential course and stopped attending formal piano lessons. And that's when my movie soundtrack composer career began. This one did last. I did write about 5 or 6 songs for my own unpublished novels. Did I stop playing the piano altogether? Not really. It's just that I decided my freedom to play whatever I chose, mostly by ear, was a much more enjoyable task than strictly following an ambitious static plan to play the greatest works by the greatest composers. Also, I realized I could play the piano as a hobby whenever I wanted to, which literally took the self-imposed pressure of aiming at perfection off my shoulders, just like that. As a mark of gratitude to my mom's piano and all those years he and I had coexisted together on a daily basis, I wrote him a sonnet, which goes as follows. Sonnet to my piano. No drums or flute or string xylophone will please me more than does my precious prompter. No cello, bass, or siphon saxophone shall prompt my hands to play as does my pianoforte. The castanets I have tried, yet I have found no bliss in hearing such consistent knocking. Thy keys, my piano, do produce such sounds that bear no resemblance to the cornets. All rhythms bear thou, all flats and sharps, regardless of all chords and scores or lyrics. For thou shalt let me play as many staves as symphonies shall plead my monkey spirit. Now piano, make me a pianist so unique that no such player plays our music. Opera singing, the relapse. My miscellaneous taste for music, my having made it to a massively sought-for place at an elite music school, and a mother pianist, had all led me to properly learn musical language and play the piano. But during my 20s, as I was taking a course in translation studies, I began to toy with the idea of giving opera singing a second chance. Stubborn as I was, I signed up for lyrical singing class, and because I had already done all the years of music theory while training as a pianist, I was told I could just skip musical language lessons. What a bargain, right? Only it wasn't. Trying to sing like opera singers do turned out to be nothing short of a struggle. What's worse, I was cursed. I was diagnosed with a soprano vocal range. Have you any idea how hard reaching the high notes while sounding perfectly tuned is? I remember thinking, I used to be so much better as a chorist. Why couldn't I just settle with singing as a chorus throughout school? Or better, in the shower, as most humans do? Why did I have to embark on this tough path to becoming an opera singing? What was I thinking? Anyway, as I'm not the kind of learner who'd instantly give up on a subject she's purposefully chosen to study, my struggle lasted for about 2 years. I'm still in touch with one of my opera singing teachers on Facebook. She's a fabulous pianist, by the way, Laura Brunetti. Thank God I never got to sing in public with her playing. The difference in talent would have been strikingly against me. Connecting the dots. Hobby meets profession. There's this phrase or quote by Steve Jobs where he says that you can't connect the dots moving forward, you can only connect them moving backwards. I don't regret the slightest part of investing so much time in my failed attempt to become an opera singer. Hey, I learned how to breathe properly before singing, and that set of techniques is the same I currently use for my public speaking career whenever I need to deliver a conference, seminar, or workshop online or offline. In fact, I even used my vocal training for the few interpreting jobs I did in the past. As life would have it, in 2012, I was hired as one of several consecutive interpreters for an American guitar teacher who came to my town to deliver a Suzuki method workshop to our local music school for 2 weeks. That was the same school where, a few years ago, I had studied piano and opera singing. The American teachers spoke American English, but the workshop attendants spoke Argentinian Spanish, so they would have been quite lost in translation had they not relied on professional interpreters, and I happened to be one of them. As my colleagues struggled with devising their bilingual glossaries for all the musical terminology involved, I was entrusted with the role of team leader, which included validating and ensuring consistency across all interpreters' materials. For the first time in my career as a professional linguist, I was the expert in the field. It is often said that creativity is something only some of us have or can actually exercise as we grow older. I personally believe that we can all lead a creative life, provided we are determined enough to make room for creativity, regardless of how busy our days get or the results. This story begins with my curiosity to find out what certain songs would sound like if they were rewritten in a new language. Well, around the time I started learning piano at my local music school, I also started rewriting a few songs and writing my own for leisure. Sometimes I would recreate the meaning in a commercially valid manner, which led me to feel more, courageous, like to wish the original artists would hear of my translated versions into English or Spanish. And back in 2020, I started doing that again and sharing some transcreated songs either from English into Spanish or from Spanish into English on Instagram. Surprisingly enough, those were my most engaging posts, really. Back in 2014, I was offered a Transcreation job by one of the agencies I was working with at the time. That was my first Transcreation job. It consisted of transcreating a few branded character taglines from English into Spanish for Latin America. Most of these taglines included rhythm, rhyme, and all sorts of rhetorical devices, the kind that you would probably look at and say these are impossible to translate. But then, wasn't I familiar with such creative challenges due to my fiction writing vocation, my reading literature for pleasure, and last but not least, my old song transcreation hobby? Well, yes, I was. You don't need to be passionate about art to enjoy or even try making some of it. When Transcreation found me 6 years ago, suddenly everything clicked into place, even my learning music. The reason why I had always been fascinated by and connected with music and the performing arts was there right before my eyes. They would all serve the purpose of making me a unique transcreator in my language pair, a professional linguist with an ability to transcreate all sorts of messages, jingles and songs included. You should send your work to Pixar or Disney, texted me a friend and translator colleague the other day. But my contract with creativity is not necessarily destined for commercial purposes. When I am transcreating songs, I actually enjoy the relief of doing it out of pure pleasure, as a leisurely activity that is nonetheless as demanding as a regular transcreation job, or perhaps more. Transcreating songs is quite a challenge. You never know whether the result will be anything worthy of your own personal satisfaction until you start singing to your own transcreated lyrics. Funnily enough, in the beginning of 2021, I got an email from a localization company I regularly work for, where I was asked whether I might be interested in and capable of handling a song transcreation job. When I got that email, I was literally ecstatic. Something that I had started doing in my early teenage for fun. Something I had actually resumed for fun during 2020, which is my hobby, one of my hobbies actually, transcreating songs for the sake of it, was certainly an opportunity. I didn't used to believe in the law of attraction, but now I certainly do. Was I capable of it? Was I interested? Of course I was. The project manager warned me that there would be rhyme and there would be, all sorts of rhetorical devices, and that of course the songs were to be transcreated in order to be sung for, I think it was an animated movie, and for some toys based on characters for kids. And I was fascinated by the idea. And yes, I took the job. Of course, it's not one person job. We linguists always work as part of a team. But I was entrusted with the role of Transcreator. My transcreations, after 8 or so hours of work, were revised by a reviser. And yes, it's a paid job. I mean, it became an opportunity. It certainly looks like a niche also. So again, as Steve Jobs would put it, you can't connect the dots moving forward. Something that you may be doing right now as a hobby that you may not even think of turning into commercial opportunity for your business, for your life, may come to you nonetheless. So I guess my sharing this story with you has, of course, this very personal sort of nostalgic touch, but also I hope you are inspired by this story to actually learn that, yes, maybe you may be doing something as a hobby that may actually be your next opportunity, that you may turn into your next opportunity. In my case, I didn't see it coming. In fact, back in 2020, I started training other linguists in transcreation and song transcreation. And I remember warning my colleagues and telling them, hey, it's practically impossible to land a job with Disney or something like that, or whatever, to transcreate songs. But let's do this as a creative exercise, because basically transcreating songs has all the challenges and complexities involved as transcreating or adapting poetry, plus the difficulty of having to make the transcreations fit the melodies and the rhythms and sound natural and as if written in the in the target language, and blah, blah, blah. And the singer needs to feel comfortable and at ease singing to those lyrics. And the articulation points need to be also spontaneous and blah, blah, blah. But it's virtually, as I said, it's virtually impossible to land a job like this, to be paid to do this, unless you are connected with the right people. And all of a sudden, I got a job like this from a localization company. Maybe a one-off, it may be a one-off, maybe just, one job, but maybe not. Maybe it's up to me now to start looking for more projects like this. In any case, I already have my portfolio. That's also, I think it's also something very interesting to share. If you're doing something as a hobby, if you're translating anything as a hobby, because you are inclined to do so. Like, for example, if you're a big fan, if you're an environmentalist and you're a big fan of certain climate crisis content or articles or whatever, and you're committed to such a cause and you are creating content, whatever, be as organized and neat and professional as possible with how you compile that content. Make it readily available somewhere where you can, just click, get a link and send it to someone. Because when this project manager addressed me with, a few questions like, would you be comfortable doing this? Have you any experience doing this? I was actually ready. I was ready without knowing I would be ready, because I had my videos uploaded on social platforms. I also had my certificates to share from my school of music. I told her, hey, I'm a musician, even though I'm not that good at it. I've studied music and I can prove this to you. So be ready to share all the materials and references and credentials that will position you as an expert in this niche, whatever it is that presents itself as an opportunity to you. So that's it. That was another episode, last one of season 1 of Founded in Transcreation. I hope you've enjoyed my story. I hope if you have, you may actually connect with me on LinkedIn. I am Delfina Morganti Hernández, English into Spanish, for Latin America and Argentina Transcreator. And I really, really hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Stay tuned for more episodes. Season 1, I'm going to be interviewing very interesting people, and also delving more into marketing, advertising, and branding, which are the 3 fields that are key to every trans creator.